Joining me right now, U.S. Senator John Cornyn. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Good to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, great to have you on the program. As always, appreciate you taking some time today. We've got quite a bit of news to get to today. Let's start with confirmation yesterday. We've got a new Secretary of State here in the United States.
Yes, we do. Mike Pompeo, former director of the CIA, former member of the House of Representatives, West Point graduate, somebody who was a successful lawyer and businessman, and somebody who I think will be very good at his job. And he's already in Brussels, I'm told, attending his first meeting of European leaders. So he didn't waste any time.
Very good. What does he bring to this role?
Well, Mike understands the world, and of course, you can imagine there's no better place to get that inside knowledge than being director of the CIA. Before that, he was on the House Special Select Committee on Intelligence, and this has been something that he's studied and since he was in the Army and went to West Point. So I think he brings a lot of knowledge and credibility. Plus, Chad, the Secretary of State is viewed as the personal representative of the President of the United States, and so knowing the close relationship and that Mike Pompeo and the President have, I think will give him increased clout on the world stage.
We've seen, in my opinion, quite a bit of turnover in some of the different cabinet positions and everything. Are you hoping for some more stability moving forward?
Well, as much as Democrats are obstructing and as difficult as it is to get anything done, floor time is at a premium, and so when we're having to confirm multiple people to the same cabinet position, it seems like we're wasting time we might be able to use more productively. But having said that, these folks serve at the president's pleasure, and it's his prerogative, but it does make our job a little more challenging.
I think one interesting thing with Secretary of State, Secretary Pompeo, is that he's been involved in talks with North Korea. And that's kind of a topic this morning as North Korea and South Korea are talking, and we'll see where this goes. What are your thoughts on, first, Pompeo's involvement and at least talking with the North Koreans, and also, second, what the news that's come out this morning about the possibility of denuclearization? What are you reading into this today?
Well, I was in Seoul in September. I'm a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and I was over there doing some of my work from the Intelligence Committee perspective there in Tokyo. And North Korea is one of the most dangerous, volatile geopolitical challenges that face our country. We've got huge challenges with Russia and China, of course, and then the wars in the Middle East. But in terms of unpredictability, a dictator with nuclear weapons and intercontinental ballistic missiles, North Korea is at the top of my list. So I find it very encouraging that Mike Pompeo went over there and met with Kim Jong-un as part of the laying the foundation for his meeting with President Trump. The meetings they've now had in South Korea, first time Kim Jong-un has been to South Korea, and the talk about finally settling the differences between North and South Korea. I didn't remember this, Chad, but actually there was never a peace treaty signed between North and South Korea, or it was called an armistice. Basically, both sides agreed to quit shooting, but now they're talking about finally settling that, and it's pretty encouraging. Having said all that, I think a healthy dose of skepticism is appropriate because we don't really know what Kim Jong-un's agenda is here.
Well, and we've seen this before. We've seen the outreach before, and nothing has happened. In your mind, and as you know, President Trump is at least somewhat expected to go in and meet with Kim Jong-un somewhere and hold a summit. What would you like to see from the North Koreans before the president goes and meets with Kim Jong-un?
Well, they've said they're going to cease their testing, but that would be a bare minimum. I think other good faith gestures. Actually, some of the interaction we've seen with the South, as you pointed out earlier, would be seen as positive signs. But the ultimate goal, and this is a goal that we share with not only South Korea but with China and the rest of the civilized world, would be to get the nuclear weapons out of North Korea, and that's something I'm not sure Kim Jong-un will ever be willing to do. He considers that his security blanket and will protect his regime, which, of course, is the most important thing to him.
Visiting with U.S. Senator John Cornyn here on the Chad Hasty Show. I do have to ask you about this piece that came out today. Your colleagues over in the House Intelligence Committee, they released a final report on its Russia investigation today that criticized the Trump campaign for, quote, poor judgment and ill-conceived actions in dealing with Russia and with Russians, but concluded that there was no evidence that the campaign colluded with the Kremlin to influence the 2016 election. What are your thoughts overall on that?
Well, I have not seen any evidence that the Trump campaign colluded with Russia. I have seen a lot of evidence that the Russians were meddling in the election, and I think what we're talking about is a campaign that was just not prepared for the sort of attention that they were going to get from some of our foreign adversaries, including the Russian intelligence agencies. But there's no doubt in my mind there was no collusion and no cooperation between the two.
So why do Democrats keep pushing this, and more importantly, why are we still seeing this in the headlines? Why are we still seeing this investigation go on if in your opinion, there's no collusion?
Well, I think that the House report is the first step, and as I said, I'm on the Senate Intelligence Committee, and we're conducting our own investigation, and we've released the first of probably 5 chapters of our report. But you can imagine that Democrats have every political reason to continue to keep this drumbeat going, and so trying to bring this to a conclusion, even after we've exhausted all leads, is very challenging. But I think we need to do it. And then recognize that Director Mueller's got a separate investigation that's on his own timetable, not ours. But I think the sooner we can bring this to a conclusion, the better.
I know some of your colleagues in the Senate and probably elsewhere want to have protections around Mueller that would prevent the president from firing him. This keeps popping up, it seems, every 3 weeks or so, that Trump's going to fire Mueller. Trump's going to fire Mueller. The president hasn't fired Mueller. Yeah. I know you've had conversations with the president. I don't know if you have talked about this specifically, but you're not for these protections, correct?
Well, I just don't think they're necessary, because I think it would be a big mistake for the president to fire Mueller, because I think the backlash would be hard to predict, and I think it could well damage his effectiveness as President of the United States into the future. Who knows what it would prompt in terms of retaliation by way of impeachment proceedings and the like. But having said all that, I believe that the statutes, the laws that were proposed in the Judiciary Committee yesterday are unconstitutional. I think the president has the authority to do it, even though I think it would be unwise for him to follow through. And I know that Senator McConnell is not going to bring such a bill up on the Senate floor. The House won't pass it, and the president won't sign it, nor should he. So to me, this is more of a political act than it is passing any laws based on their merit.
Before I let you go, midterm elections will be coming up soon. One, do you have any predictions on how the midterms are going to go? And number 2, what will the Senate be working on between now and then?
Well, Chad, the midterms for the party in power are typically tough. They typically lose seats. I think the House is particularly challenged given a number of the retirements you've seen. In the Senate, we actually have an extraordinarily good map. The only incumbent Republican who has a challenging race right now is Dean Heller in Nevada. And in 10 of the states that President Trump won, there's an incumbent Democrat seeking re-election. And in half of those, 5 states, he won by double digits. So I think there's an opportunity for us to pick up a few seats. we're going to keep confirming federal judges. We're going to do 6 next week. We just had a hearing with 3 Texas nominees last week. I guess it's this week still. And we look forward to continuing to confirm those judges to lifetime appointments and do what we can, where we can, with not much cooperation from our Democratic colleagues.
U.S. Senator John Cornyn, as always, appreciate your time today. We'll visit with you later on.
Thanks, Chad.